The first sip, the sun was still low in the sky, and the small apartment was filled with a soft golden light. Daniel sat at his kitchen table, still in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, warm and rich. It was his morning ritual, the one thing that always helped him wake up. He reached for the white ceramic mug, steam curling up into the air like tiny ghosts. He lifted it to his lips and took the first slow sip. The bitter taste spread across his tongue, and he let out a small sigh of comfort. Somewhere behind him, a faint sound broke the morning calm. It was like a ripple in the air, a low hum mixed with a soft crackle. Daniel frowned and turned his head. His heart skipped a beat. In the middle of his living room, the air was bending. It shimmered, twisting like water disturbed by a stone. The sound grew louder, and in the blink of an eye, the shimmering turned into a glowing oval of silver light. Daniel froze, his mug halfway to his mouth. Out of the light stepped a figure, tall, slender, graceful. Her skin had a soft blue shimmer, as if tiny stars were trapped beneath the surface. Her long hair floated slightly, as though underwater. Her eyes were silver, glowing faintly, and they locked directly onto him for a moment. Neither of them moved. Then she saw the mug in his hand, and her expression turned from curiosity to pure horror. "No!" she shouted, her voice sharp and urgent. Before Daniel could react, she rushed forward. Her movements were faster than any human's. She grabbed the mug and tried to yank it from his hand. Hot coffee spilled onto the table, and Daniel jumped back. "What the hell is your problem?" he snapped, clutching his hand. "You're drinking poison," she said, her voice trembling with shock. Her silver eyes scanned his face as if checking for signs of sickness. Daniel blinked, confused. "It's coffee," he said slowly. "It's not poison." But the alien girl shook her head violently. "You humans, you drink this every morning?" she asked, her tone filled with disbelief. Daniel could only stare. "Yeah, it's normal," he said, still trying to understand what was happening. She stepped back, staring at the brown liquid dripping from the edge of the mug. "In my world, that is deadly," she said. "One sip can stop the heart within hours." Daniel laughed once, but it was nervous. He had no idea who she was, where she came from, or how she got into his apartment. "Look," he said, "I don't know who you are, but coffee isn't killing anybody here." The girl's expression turned serious, almost sad. "My name is Lyra," she said quietly. "I am from the planet Vera, and I came here to warn you." Daniel's mind felt like it was spinning. This had to be a dream, some weird side effect of waking up too early. But her voice, her presence, it all felt too real. Lyra glanced at the half-empty mug again. "Every human on this planet may already be poisoned," she whispered. Her words sent a small chill down Daniel's spine. He shook his head, forcing a laugh. "Lady, billions of people drink coffee every day. If it was poison, we'd all be dead." She didn't laugh. Her eyes were fixed on him, sharp and unblinking. "Not all poisons kill quickly," she said. "Some change you slowly, until you are no longer yourself." For a moment, silence filled the kitchen. Daniel's heart was beating a little faster now, and he didn't like it. He told himself it was just because some strange alien woman had appeared out of nowhere. Not because of what she said, but still, a part of him felt uneasy. He glanced at the coffee pot, still half full. Steam rose from it, curling in the morning light. It suddenly didn't look as harmless as it had a few minutes ago. Lyra took a step closer, lowering her voice. "Please," she said, "stop drinking it, at least until I can explain everything." Daniel hesitated. He didn't like being told what to do, especially by someone who had just barged into his life. But there was something in her tone, a kind of desperate urgency, that made him pause. He set the mug down slowly. "Fine," he said. "You've got 5 minutes. Start talking." Her eyes softened slightly. She glanced toward the window, as if making sure no one was watching. And then she began. "In my world, coffee plants grow in only one region, a toxic zone we never enter," she said. They produce a chemical that is harmless to the plants, but deadly to most life forms. Daniel listened, still skeptical. But humans aren't dying, he said. Lyra shook her head. They are changing in ways they do not see. The air between them felt heavier now. Daniel's fingers twitched slightly, and he wasn't sure if it was from nerves or the coffee. Lyra's silver eyes locked onto him. And then she said something that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. That smell, she whispered. It's in your blood now. The warning. Daniel stood frozen in his kitchen, the half-spilled coffee still dripping from the edge of the table. Lyra's silver eyes did not leave his face. Her voice was calm now, but every word carried a quiet weight. If you keep drinking that, she said, your body will never be the same again. Daniel crossed his arms, trying to act like he wasn't shaken. All right, he said. Explain, what exactly do you think this coffee is doing to me? Lyra moved closer to the table and touched the liquid with her fingertip. A faint hiss came from her skin, and she pulled her hand back instantly. Her blue shimmer flickered for a second, as if her body was reacting to the contact. On my planet, she said, the chemical inside this drink is called saraxine. It kills our kind within hours, but humans. You are different, Daniel frowned. If it doesn't kill us, then what's the problem? Lyra's gaze was steady. The problem, she said softly, is that it changes your mind, slowly, year after year. Daniel let out a short laugh. So what, you're saying coffee brainwashes us? Her expression didn't change. Yes, she said, and worse, it makes you dependent. That is why every human you know starts the day with it. That is why your cities are filled with shops selling it. Daniel glanced toward his kitchen counter where the coffee pot still steamed. He thought about his office. How every morning started with the smell of coffee. How no one even questioned it. It was just normal. Look, he said finally. I get that it's dangerous for you. But maybe you're just projecting. Humans have been drinking coffee for centuries. Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. Centuries for you, she said, is nothing to a species that has studied life across hundreds of worlds. She reached into a small satchel at her side and pulled out a device. It was smooth, silver, and shaped like a small disc. She pressed it to Daniel's wrist before he could react. A soft blue light swept across his skin. The device let out a low chime. Lyra glanced at the tiny screen on its surface. Her expression darkened. It is already in your blood, she whispered. Your levels are high, too high for a human. Your age. Daniel stepped back, his heart beating faster. What does that mean? Lyra's voice lowered to almost a whisper. It means you have been consuming it for so long. Your brain is no longer making certain chemicals by itself. Without this drink, you would feel weak, slow, even sick. That is how it controls you. Daniel swallowed hard. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she didn't understand human life, but a memory came to him. The last time he went a morning without coffee, the pounding headache, the irritability, the way he couldn't think clearly. It had been like withdrawal. Still, he forced a smirk. That's called caffeine withdrawal. It's normal, he said. It doesn't mean we're being controlled. Lyra shook her head. You think it is normal because every human around you feels the same, she said. That is how deep it runs. She turned toward the window, her silver eyes scanning the street below. Daniel followed her gaze. People passed by carrying travel mugs, paper cups, sipping from them without a thought. It was such a small thing. But suddenly, it looked different. Like a silent ritual, everyone was following without question. Lyra took a deep breath. Daniel, she said, I came here because your species is reaching a turning point. In my research, I discovered that the compound in this drink is not natural to Earth. Daniel blinked. What do you mean? Lyra looked directly at him. I mean it was brought here, placed here, a very long time ago. Daniel's pulse quickened. By who? He asked. Lyra hesitated for the first time since arriving. That, she said, is the part I am still trying to uncover. But whoever they were, they wanted your kind to depend on it. Daniel stepped closer to her. So you're saying coffee is alien? Lyra gave a small nod. In a way, yes, but it has been here for so long you think it is yours. Silence hung between them for a moment. Then a loud noise shattered it. A deep metallic thud from somewhere outside Lyra's. Posture stiffened. They found me, she whispered. Daniel's eyebrows furrowed. Who? Lyra's silver eyes met his. The ones who want you to keep drinking, she said. The ones who don't want the truth to spread. She grabbed his wrist, pulling him away from the kitchen. Come with me if you want to live long enough to know the truth, she said. Daniel hesitated, glancing once more at the coffee pot. The steam still rose, curling lazily toward the ceiling, and for the first time in his life, the sight of it made him uneasy. The first sign the street outside was alive with the morning rush. People walked past in neat lines, carrying their coffees, chatting, checking their devices. None of them noticed Daniel and Lyra slip into the narrow alley. Lyra moved fast, her head turning left and right, scanning for threats. Daniel struggled to keep up, his mind still spinning from her words. Alien poison, brain control, mysterious enemies. It all sounded insane, and yet a part of him couldn't shake the unease growing in his chest. They reached the end of the alley where an old, rusted door stood. Lyra pressed her palm against a hidden panel. With a faint hiss, the door unlocked. Inside was a small, dimly lit room filled with strange equipment, silver screens, glowing tubes, devices that hummed with low energy. Daniel stepped inside, glancing around in disbelief. This is where you live? He asked. Lyra shook her head. No, this is where I test the truth. She walked to a long metal table and picked up a small scanner. Sit, she told him, pointing to a chair. Daniel sat reluctantly. Lyra pressed the scanner to the side of his neck. It emitted a soft blue light that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Her eyes flicked over the readings, and her lips tightened. It's already affecting your nervous system, she said. Daniel frowned. What are you talking about? I feel fine. Lyra gave him a long look. Do you? She asked softly. The question made Daniel pause. Now that she mentioned it, he did feel off. His hands were trembling slightly. His pulse felt faster than usual. A thin sheen of sweat was forming on his forehead. He brushed it off. Maybe it was just the running, the stress. Lyra reached for another device. This one looked like a small headset with tiny silver points along the inside. She placed it on his head before he could protest. The device hummed and a screen lit up. Daniel saw a glowing image of his brain, shifting and flickering. Lyra's silver eyes narrowed as she studied it. Your neural activity is irregular, she said. See these patterns? That's not normal for a human of your age. Daniel tried to laugh it off. I've had a stressful morning, he said. Lyra didn't smile. This pattern is not caused by stress. It is the sign of chemical adaptation, she pointed to several glowing spots on the image. These areas are more active when you drink the poison. Your brain has been rewired to crave it. Daniel looked away. Part of him wanted to deny it, but deep down, he knew she was right. He remembered all the times he had been tired, irritated, or even sick until he had that first sip. How quickly the coffee fixed everything. How much he depended on it. But to hear it described like this made it sound less like a harmless habit and more like a trap. A sudden wave of dizziness washed over him. The room seemed to tilt, and his vision blurred for a second. He gripped the edge of the table. Whoa, he muttered. That's weird. Lyra moved closer instantly, her voice urgent. It's starting, she said. What's starting? He asked. The first signs, she replied. Your heart rate is unstable. Your system is reacting to the last dose. Daniel's chest tightened. He could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Lyra reached into her satchel and pulled out a small vial of shimmering liquid. Drink this, she ordered. Daniel hesitated. What is it? An antidote temporary, she said. It will stabilize you until I can find a way to remove the compound completely. Reluctantly, Daniel took the vial and drank. The liquid was cool, with a metallic taste that lingered almost instantly. The pounding in his chest eased, his vision cleared, and the dizziness faded. Daniel took a deep breath. "Okay. Maybe you're not crazy," he admitted. Lyra didn't smile at the comment. Her eyes remained tense, scanning the monitors. "You need to understand," she said. "This is only the beginning. The longer you keep drinking it, the harder it will be to undo." Before Daniel could respond, a faint beeping echoed from one of her devices. Lyra moved quickly to the console, her fingers flying over the controls. Her face paled. "They're here," she said. Daniel's stomach tightened. "Who's here?" Lyra turned toward him, her voice low and urgent. "The ones who make sure humans never stop drinking." A deep rumble shook the walls, the lights flickered, and a low metallic grinding sound came from outside. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to run. Lyra grabbed his arm, pulling him toward a back exit. "If they catch us, you will never hear the truth," she said. Daniel's pulse quickened again, but this time it wasn't the coffee. It was fear, real fear, the kind that told him his life had just changed forever. The truth about Earth. The back exit led to another narrow alley, its walls damp and stained. With years of rain, Lyra pulled Daniel into the shadows, moving quickly but quietly. The ground vibrated under their feet, the low hum of heavy engines echoing between the buildings. Daniel glanced over his shoulder and caught sight of a strange, black vehicle rolling slowly down the main street. It was smooth, armored, with no windows, the kind of thing that didn't belong in an ordinary neighborhood. "They're searching," Lyra whispered, her voice tight. Daniel swallowed hard. "Who are they?" "They call themselves the Keepers," she said. "They control the supply of the poison on this planet." Daniel's mind raced. "You mean coffee?" Lyra gave him a sharp look. "I mean the substance inside it. Coffee is only the disguise." They ducked into an old service tunnel, the air thick with dust and the smell of rust. Lyra led him deeper, her steps sure and quick. Finally, they reached a small underground room filled with shelves of dusty files and broken equipment. Lyra lit a small lamp, the glow casting shadows across the walls. Daniel looked around in confusion. "What is this place?" "A forgotten station," Lyra said. "From when your world was still young. Back when the first seeds were planted here." Daniel frowned. "Planted by who?" Lyra stepped closer to one of the shelves, pulling out a yellowed folder. She opened it and spread several photographs on the table. Daniel leaned over and felt his chest tighten. The pictures showed fields of coffee plants, but they weren't on Earth. The sky was a strange greenish hue, and tall, jagged mountains rose in the distance. "This is Vera," Lyra said. "The homeworld of the plant, before it was brought here." Daniel stared at her. "You're telling me coffee isn't from Earth at all?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Thousands of years ago, before your civilizations existed, a ship came here, carrying seeds from my world." Daniel shook his head. "Why would anyone do that?" Lyra's expression darkened. "Because the chemical it produces affects human biology. It was a way to control you before you even knew you were being controlled." Daniel felt a chill run through him. But why would anyone care about controlling humans? Lyra walked to a dusty metal cabinet and pulled out another file. Inside were documents with diagrams of human brains, notes in both human and alien script. "Because your species is rare," she said. "Your minds adapt faster than almost any I've seen. Too fast for some civilization's comfort." Daniel frowned. "So they wanted to slow us down?" "Not slow," Lyra said. "Guide, shape your thoughts, your choices, your entire culture." Daniel took a step back. "You're saying everything we are could have been influenced by coffee?" Lyra met his gaze. "Not everything, but enough." She picked up one of the papers and pointed at a series of brain scans. "These are human brains from before the first coffee plants were grown on Earth, and these are after." The differences were subtle but undeniable. Certain areas were more active, while others had reduced activity over generations, Lyra said. It changes how you think without you even noticing. Before Daniel could respond, a faint, mechanical hiss came from the tunnel. Lyra's head snapped toward the sound. "They've tracked us," she said. She moved to a small metal box in the corner and pulled out a sleek alien device. It unfolded into something that looked like a cross between a weapon and a scanner. Daniel took a step back. "Wait, are we about to fight them?" Lyra glanced at him. "If they catch me, you'll never know the rest of the truth. So yes, if I have to." The humming grew louder, heavy footsteps echoing through the tunnel. Daniel's pulse quickened. The lamp flickered as the air filled with a faint electrical charge. Lyra grabbed Daniel's hand, pulling him toward a side passage. "This way," she whispered. They ran through the darkness, their footsteps pounding on the concrete. Behind them, a beam of white light cut through the shadows, followed by a cold, metallic voice. "Subject located. Retrieval in progress." They burst out into an open chamber that looked like an old underground train platform. Lyra scanned the ceiling, spotting a maintenance ladder. "Climb," she ordered. Daniel didn't argue, pulling himself up rung by rung, his arms burning. Lyra followed quickly, the strange weapon still in her grip. As they reached the top, Daniel heard the clang of metal boots below. A sharp hiss filled the air, some kind of gas releasing. Lyra shoved him through the hatch and slammed it shut. They found themselves in a dark storage room above ground. Lyra leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Daniel looked at her, his mind still reeling. "So what now?" She met his eyes. "Now," she said, "you understand this is bigger than your morning drink. It's about the future of your species." The storage room was dark and smelled of dust and old wood. Lyra didn't waste a second. She moved to the far wall and pressed her palm against a section that looked like solid metal. A thin seam of blue light appeared, and the panel slid open, revealing a narrow hallway. "Move," she whispered. Daniel followed her into the passage, his heart still racing from the close escape. They stepped out into a quiet side street, the early morning fog wrapping the buildings in pale gray. Daniel's mind was still trying to catch up. Coffee wasn't from Earth. It was alien. And it was possibly controlling humanity. That thought alone was enough to make his stomach turn. But there was no time to think. A low, distant hum grew louder. Lyra grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the shadows from around the corner. The black vehicle appeared again, silent except for the deep vibration of its engine. Its smooth surface reflected the streetlights like liquid metal. "They've already blocked the main roads." Lyra murmured, "They're hurting us." Daniel looked at her. "So what's the plan? Run until they give up?" Lyra's expression was hard. "They don't give up," she said. "They only stop when you're gone, or under their control." Without warning, the vehicle's side panels slid open. Two tall figures stepped out, dressed in black armor, with smooth, featureless masks. Each held a device that looked like a weapon, but glowed with a faint green light. "Target confirmed," one of them said in a cold, mechanical voice. Lyra shoved Daniel back. "Run!" They darted into the fog, boots splashing in shallow puddles. Daniel's lungs burned, his legs aching. Behind them, the keepers moved in perfect formation, their steps steady, not rushed, like predators that knew their prey couldn't escape. Lyra reached into her satchel and pulled out a small sphere the size of a marble. She pressed it between her palms, and it began to glow. Then she tossed it onto the street behind them. It hit the ground and exploded in a burst of blinding white light. Daniel shielded his eyes. "Go, go, go," Lyra urged. They turned into another alley, but this one was a dead end. High brick walls on all sides. Daniel's chest tightened. "Great, now what?" Lyra's silver eyes scanned the wall, and she spotted a metal fire escape above them. She crouched down. "Step on my hands," she ordered. Daniel didn't hesitate. He planted his foot in her palms, and she boosted him upward. He grabbed the edge of the fire escape and hauled himself up. Lyra jumped and caught the railing with one hand, pulling herself up effortlessly. The sound of boots hitting the pavement grew closer. Daniel glanced down and saw the keepers entering the alley. One of them aimed its weapon, and a beam of green light shot upward, striking the metal beside Daniel's hand. The railing hissed and smoked where it had been hit. "Move!" Lyra shouted. They scrambled up the stairs 2-3 levels before bursting onto the rooftop. The city spread out before them, rooftops and chimneys stretching into the mist. Lyra scanned for a path, then pointed. "There, we can lose them." In the old quarter, they leapt from one rooftop to the next, Daniel nearly slipping on the wet tiles. The keepers followed, their movements unnaturally precise. "They're too fast." Daniel gasped. Lyra tossed him a small metallic disc. "Hold this. If they get too close, press the center." They reached a gap between buildings that was too wide to jump. Lyra didn't slow down. She pulled a slim rod from her belt, pressed a button, and it extended into a glowing bridge of blue light. Daniel's jaw dropped. Okay, that's actually cool. No time for compliments." Lyra snapped. They crossed quickly, the bridge vanishing behind them as soon as they reached the other side. The keepers stopped at the edge, scanning the gap. Daniel leaned against a vent, trying to catch his breath. "This is insane," he said. Lyra turned to him, her voice low and urgent. "This is survival, and it's only going to get worse." Before he could reply, a faint buzzing sound filled the air. Lyra's eyes widened. "They've called in a drone." Above them, a black triangular craft descended silently, its underside glowing faintly. A spotlight snapped on, flooding the rooftop in harsh white light. Daniel raised his hands instinctively. Lyra grabbed his wrist. "Not yet," she said. "We still have one chance." She pulled another sphere from her satchel, but this one pulsed with a deep red glow. She looked at Daniel. "When I throw this, run. Don't look back." The drone's voice echoed through the fog. "Stand down. You cannot escape." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Watch me," she muttered. She hurled the sphere toward the drone, and it exploded in a shockwave of sound and heat. The light shattered, and the drone spun out of control, crashing into a nearby rooftop. Daniel didn't need to be told twice. They ran again, the city stretching endlessly ahead. Somewhere behind them, the keepers regrouped, their voices cold and unshaken. "Pursuit will continue. Target cannot be allowed to reach safe zone." The hidden files. The old quarter was a maze of crumbling brick buildings, narrow streets, and shadows that seemed to swallow the light. Lyra led Daniel through a hidden archway, down a staircase that disappeared beneath the street. The air grew colder, the sound of the city fading above them. Finally, they entered a dim underground chamber, lit only by the soft blue glow of alien technology. Daniel paused at the entrance, breathing hard. "What is this place?" Lyra brushed dust from a control panel. "A safe house, older than your modern cities," she said. "It was built during the first wave of the planting." Daniel frowned. "You mean when coffee was brought here?" Lyra nodded without looking at him, her fingers dancing over the console. With a hum, a section of the wall slid open, revealing a small room lined with silver cases. Inside each case were thin crystal slabs, glowing faintly as if holding something alive. Lyra picked one up and placed it in a slot on the console. The slab lit up, projecting an image into the air. Strange alien script alongside diagrams of plants, human brains, and star maps. Daniel stared at the floating symbols. "What is all this?" Lyra's voice was quiet. "These are the original files, the ones the keepers have been trying to erase for centuries." She tapped a section of the projection, and the symbols shifted into an image Daniel could understand. It showed an alien ship hovering above a young Earth, releasing thousands of tiny seed pods. The pods scattered across continents, some falling into the soil, others sinking into rivers and lakes. Daniel's stomach tightened. "That's coffee plants," Lyra nodded. "Yes, engineered to survive in almost any climate, to spread without effort. It was the perfect way to seed your world without raising suspicion." Daniel's voice was low. "Why go to all that trouble? Why not just take over?" Lyra's eyes darkened. because open conquest would have united your kind against them. But slow influence, hidden inside something you welcome every morning, that works without resistance. She pulled up another file. It showed graphs of human brain activity changing over centuries. Whole areas became more sensitive to certain chemical triggers. Patterns of thought shifted. Decision-making altered. Daniel stared at it in disbelief. "This is real," he whispered. "You're saying we've been shaped for thousands of years, and we never noticed." Lyra met his eyes. "That is why I came, to break the chain before it is too late." Before Daniel could respond, a soft alarm chimed from the console. Lyra froze. "They found the signal," she said. Daniel glanced around. "What signal?" Lyra's hands flew over the controls. "When I accessed these files, I triggered a trace. They'll be here in minutes." She opened a hidden compartment beneath the console and pulled out a small cylindrical device. "This is a data core. It contains everything we've seen, all the proof you'll need." She pressed it into Daniel's hand. "Keep it safe, no matter what happens to me." Daniel stared at it. "Wait, what are you talking about?" "You're coming with me." Lyra's expression was firm. "I'll slow them down. You'll get this out." The sound of heavy boots echoed from somewhere above. The ceiling trembled with each step. Lyra moved to the entrance, pulling out her weapon. "Daniel, there's another exit behind the storage racks. Take it. Follow the tunnel until you reach the surface." Daniel didn't move. "I'm not leaving you." Lyra's silver eyes softened for a moment. "You don't understand. If they catch us both, this truth dies here." The ceiling shook again. Dust falling in soft clouds. The blue glow of the chamber flickered. A metallic voice rang out above. "Target detected. Breach in progress." Lyra looked at him one last time. "Run," she said. Daniel hesitated, then gripped the data core tightly and backed toward the racks. As he slipped into the narrow passage, he glanced back. Lyra was already facing the entrance, her weapon charged and glowing. The wall behind her began to crack, light spilling through as the keepers forced their way inside. Daniel turned and ran, the tunnel twisting into darkness, the sound of energy blasts and Lyra's voice shouting in her alien tongue echoed faintly behind him. He didn't stop until he saw a faint square of light ahead. Climbing up, he emerged into a quiet alley far from the old quarter. The data core was warm in his hand, pulsing like a heartbeat. Daniel knew the keepers wouldn't stop until they got it back, and somewhere beneath the streets, Lyra was still fighting to give him that chance. The choice. Daniel stood in the empty alley, the early morning mist curling around him like a living thing. The small metal data core in his hand pulsed faintly, almost as if it were breathing. He could still hear faint echoes in his mind, the sound of Lyra's voice, the energy blasts, the crash of walls breaking. She might be gone, and if she was, it was because she believed he could finish what she started. He slipped the core into his pocket and stepped out into the street. The city looked normal. People walking to work, laughing, checking their phones, sipping from their coffee cups. The same ritual, repeated every morning, but now Daniel couldn't unsee it. Every sip felt like a chain, invisible but unbreakable, and he was holding the only key to shattering it. He knew the files inside the core could expose the truth. Brain scans, alien planting maps, everything. But he also knew what it would mean. Billions of people would lose something they loved. Entire industries would collapse overnight. And if Lyra was right, humans would go through painful withdrawal before they could adapt. The world could turn chaotic, even violent. Daniel walked without thinking, his feet taking him toward the waterfront. The city's main coffee distribution hub was here, an enormous warehouse where beans from around the world arrived before being roasted and shipped. Lyra had told him earlier, "If you destroy the supply here, you buy humanity time. They can't replace it fast enough." The warehouse loomed ahead, guarded but not heavily. Daniel stopped in the shadows, his mind racing. Destroying it would mean war with the keepers. Not destroying it would mean keeping their control in place. Either way, the choice was his now. He pulled the data core from his pocket, feeling its warmth in his hand. Inside was also a command sequence, one that, if broadcast, could override the security on the warehouse's main fuel storage. He could trigger an overload, burn it all to ash. He imagined the flames, the headlines, the chaos, and somewhere, maybe Lyra watching from a distance, knowing he had chosen to fight. But then he thought of the people, the woman smiling over her morning cup, the old man who sat at the cafe every day, the students studying late into the night. It wasn't their fault. They didn't know. Would destroying it help them, or just hurt them faster? A low hum drew his attention. From the mist, the Black Keeper vehicle emerged, moving slowly toward him. The side panels slid open, and two armored figures stepped out, their glowing weapons trained on him. The mechanical voice echoed through the street. "Hand over the device, human, and you will be spared." Daniel's grip on the core tightened. He could give it to them and walk away, pretend none of this ever happened. They would erase Lyra's warning, keep their control, and life would go back to the way it was. But he would know. He would always know. The Keepers stepped closer, their voices calm but cold. "You cannot win. The system is already complete." Daniel took a deep breath. "Maybe," he said, quietly, "but it only takes one crack to break a wall." In one motion, he pulled a small transmitter from his pocket, a tool Lyra had given him. He slotted the core into it, the device lighting up instantly. A deep warning tone blared from the Keeper's armor. "Stop immediately," they commanded, their voices sharper now. Daniel didn't stop. He pressed his thumb against the activation pad. Somewhere inside the warehouse, fuel systems began to overload. The Keepers raised their weapons. A blinding beam of green light shot toward him. But Daniel dived behind a concrete barrier. The transmitter's glow grew brighter, and a faint rumble shook the ground. The Keepers advanced, but it was too late. With a deafening roar, a wall of fire erupted from the warehouse. The night sky turned orange, the heat washing over the street. Screams echoed from nearby workers, alarms blaring across the docks. The Keepers staggered back, shielding themselves from the blast. Daniel slipped into the chaos, disappearing into the smoke-filled streets. Behind him, the flames devoured the building, and with it, millions of pounds of coffee beans. It wouldn't end the problem forever, but it was a start, a message, a first strike. Hours later, Daniel sat alone on a rooftop, watching the smoke rise into the dawn sky. The transmitter was gone, the data core destroyed in the overload. No one would ever know exactly what happened, except him, and somewhere out there. If she was still alive, Lyra. He took a deep breath. The air smelled of ash, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel like having coffee.